What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking eForge, and today I'm going to be forging a campfire roasting fork for roasting things like hot dogs or marshmallows over a campfire. So let's get rocking. Now I'm continuing the trend set by my previous video in forging things used for outdoor cooking, and for this project I'm going to be using a 2.5 foot long piece of 3/8 inch square stock. And feel free to use anything longer or shorter, I just think that 2.5 feet should be plenty. And I'm going to start by drawing a blunt taper. I'm going to draw that down to a sharp point, sharp-ish point, and then I'm going to just blend that up into the body of the parent stock. And I've got that drawn out to about 3.5 inches, and that's not going to be the full length of the tines of this fork, but it's going to get us started. So the next thing I'm going to do is hammer down on the diagonal here, just because I want the lines of the shank of this fork to kind of blend into the fork tines themselves. And I think that's the way that I want to go with it. I'm going to flatten about 4 to 5 inches down to just about 1/4 inch, and we'll go from there. I may regret my decision to forge on the diagonal, because I've got a twist on it now. Yeah, I think I'm absolutely going to regret this. Next heat, I'm going to work on flattening this out a little more accurately so that it's not tapered all the way down. And then after that, we're going to come in with our handheld chisel and chisel down the middle of that to start splitting the two tines. And yeah, splitting this is going to be a pain. Hey, don't do this the way I'm doing it. This would be a lot easier if you just flatten on the flat and then split down that direction. I just had to be different. I'm realizing that in order to clamp this to my anvil, I'm going to have to be up at the point. Yeah. The first strike is going to knock that thing sideways. So I'm going to have to be way up. Okay, I can split a portion of it. But I'm going to have to flatten quite a bit more in order to split up to that point. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. This is going to give me an added benefit of kind of blending the steel, blending down into the split. The actual fork is going to come down and start to gradually spread out before it actually splits off into the tines. I think that'll look nice, I hope. All right, so next heat, I'm going to come in and start to split this with my handheld chisel. All right, I'm being very careful here to just barely get through the steel. I'm almost shearing and cracking my way through the backside now, but I've got the split fully developed now, and we're just working on backing that all the way up. And I'm being very careful to not not chisel into the face of my anvil. Once this is done, I'm going to go in and touch that up with a file. Because the rag on the back side of this cut is going to be very thin and very much not conducive to forging these tines any better. All right, so now that I've got this started, I'm going to lock this in the vise and just start chiseling down between these two. Gotta be careful here. All right, so in the interest of having this split clean, I'm actually gonna finish this cut up with an angle grinder and a cutoff disc, and that should eliminate a lot of that rag in between the pieces. But I've got this split forged out about 80% of the way through the piece, which gave me a channel to fit the blade between, so I'm not losing quite so much material. And then next I'm going to lock this in the vise and then use my chisel to chisel down between these two tines and separate them out and kind of refine that cut. And then I am going to take the time to come in with a bastard file and clean up that rag from the cut. And once I've got the tines kind of split up apart, I can start forging these down. Now that I've got the tines forged to a rough round, I'm just gonna come in here, making sure it's fairly straight, and hammer between those tines so I can spread them out and then use a file to clean between the two tines where that split is, because it's still pretty rough in there, before we go back and reshape those tines back forward. Oh, you're suddenly very square. I don't hate the square, actually. So it ain't perfect, but, one's a little longer and maybe a little thicker than the other, and the split ended up just a little bit that direction, but in the grand scheme of things, it turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. I will be doing some sanding on these tines to make them a little nicer and a little less likely to deposit forge scale into the hot dogs. So now we're gonna go ahead and spin this around and work on the handle, and I'm gonna put a little twist in the middle just as added decoration, and then we'll be finished up. And I'm gonna pretty well do my classic loop on the end of my handle here. Except unlike normal, I'm gonna take about 1 inch of material and turn that into a much larger loop. All right, so now I've got this taper forged out from about that 1 inch of material. It's about 3 inches long now. I'm gonna knock down those corners and forge this tail into a nice octagon. Now, before I actually forge this into a loop, I'm gonna knock down the corners on the entire length of this bar, and then I'm gonna start doing a split twist, but a modified split twist for the handle before I actually loop this over, because this was actually, my plan is to have this kind of come out and all the way around, and that's gonna get in the way of me trying to chisel down on that bar. Now I gotta get this back straight. All right, so I'm gonna take my chisel here and I'm gonna forge in a channel, but it's gonna be offset from the center. And then I'm gonna come back in and turn this 90 degrees and chisel into the face closer to that same edge that I just chiseled in close to here. All right, and now I'm gonna do that on the opposite corner and then twist it. And that's our modified split twist. And I'm gonna do the same thing here in the middle just to make it look kind of matching and give it a little bit more decoration in the actual shank of this fork. I've got the channels forged out. We're just gonna twist this. So we've got the middle there. I might do an extra twist on that just to make it a little tighter, but we're gonna do roughly the same thing on the handle in the next heat. Then I'm gonna come in and straighten this on my stump to avoid messing up that twist, either of the twists. And now that the twists are done, I'm gonna go ahead and scroll this. And I aligned the twists such that this is actually in the same plane as the fork itself, so that when it's hanging up, the fork tines will hang flat against the wall instead of sideways or awkwardly trying to twist. All right, so now that I've got that scrolled, I'm gonna pop it back in the forge, cool off the tip of that scroll, and then make a nice big long loop on the horn of the anvil. And then finally, of course, give this a nice brushing. And then give it a quick layer of beeswax to seal the steel and give it a nice darker coloration to it. Oh, and also don't forget to touch mark. And then I'll brush the other side. And then finally, finish off that layer of wax. And I'm gonna leave half the tines clean so that I can just sand those off and make those nice for actually stabbing through food. And that will finish up our project, as I try to clean up all of the wax that I've got on the face of my anvil. And after much grinding and hand sanding, it's ready for cooking. And that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, or ring that notification bell. If you want to support me and the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link's in the description below the video, or please consider becoming a member on my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking. Just waiting for that. I'll wait for that to cool down.